Hello, my name is Labria Rainey, and today, in 60-minute style interview segment, we will be discussing comprehensive sex education and some of the topics that follow as consent, sexual violence, the watered-down teachings within the public school system, and the impacts of such topics. Today, my guest and I will be talking about these topics. However, she will not be able to show her face due to circumstances, but her voice will be permeated throughout the entire segment. Thank you for being with me today.
I'm glad to join you today.
So let's just get started with the whole entire segment. How has consent, the topic that I discussed just now, impacted you throughout your life, throughout sex education, and just throughout your adult years?
Okay, as far as sex education in public school, I think it was a means to an end to check a box. The curriculum to me was very sterile, that promoted, number one, abstinence. So if consent specifically was a big part of that.
And following from sex education into your life, how has your view of consent being added to what you learned at such an age impacted your life or events within your life?
As far as consent, consent is one of the most important topics that generally is not talked about. And I take it even further out of the sexual context. Consent as in having autonomy over your individual person, whether you're a little kid who's seeing a distant relative and you're encouraged to go give them a hug when they're a stranger to you, to then it can go into being in a relationship and you really don't want to do something sexually or otherwise, but you go along for the sake of being in a relationship because it shouldn't be that way.
And relating such topic as consent leads to our other topic of sexual violence, which is very at high levels within our country due to statistic wise and to personal experience wise, as I've been told by our producers of the show. Comfortably enough, would you be able to tell us about how such sexual violence, either taught or experienced, has impacted your life?
Sexual violence is something, you hear about it on the TV. And unfortunately, you have friends and loved ones who experience different, various types of sexual violence in a lifetime, unfortunately. I think that's where some trouble come in. That's a step in relationships or engaging others that a lot of people were not taught and is not talked about.
Now, newer research has showed a lot of the impact demographics towards the watered down teachings, the lack of understanding truly consent, and sexual violence that's not talked about as much. There's a linkage towards a higher demographic that's kind of a newer study that came out. Black girls. And needed, but I wanted to see your standpoint.
Black woman, what I can say is yes, young black girls, there are many studies out there to show the adultification of them, meaning they're given adult attributes, meaning older people approach them, say crude comments to them and the like. So yes, I can definitely speak to that.
One of the main points that we want to give out is a newer solution. Not new in the sense of, it's just been talked about, but an approach in the public school system of having a more comprehensive sex education. get your reaction from is a study, more of a examine into a certain curriculum of sex education, but within the state of South Carolina. And this is a type of curriculum that is given to a majority of schools within the state of South Carolina. I want you to read the highlighted stuff.
Okay. South Carolina schools are required to teach sex education. Curriculum is not required to be comprehensive. Curriculum must not include instructions on homosexual relationships unless the context of discussing STDs. Curriculum is not required to include instruction on consent.
And going out of this segment, what are your last thoughts of the topics that we talked about thus far?
Unfortunately, some of the students, that's all the sexual education they will receive. Conversation.
Thank you again for being our guest. And thank you for being a great audience. And this will be the conclusion of our 60-minute style interview on the topics of consent, sexual violence, the impact of demographics towards those topics, and overall comprehensive sex education. Thank you and have a great day.